At the Future Proof conference last month, today's guest claimed that he could build a $1 billion RIA with no employees in under 3 years. We're going to break down exactly how he would do that. He and his team have built one of the industry's fastest growing custodians, and he can go deep on my 3 favorite topics in this industry: investing, technology, and advisor growth.
You're listening to the Resilient Advisor Podcast. This episode of the Resilient Advisor is brought to you by the Titleist Advisor Network, where independent financial advisors become resilient, high-growth business owners. Since 2003, we've been private equity-free, helping advisors build real equity in their firms. Learn more at jointitleist.com.
Welcome to the Resilient Advisor Podcast, where we bring industry experts to help you build your business your way. My name is Jay Coulter, and joining me today is Altruist CEO Jason Wenk. If you're catching this live on LinkedIn, YouTube, or X, and you'd like to ask Jason a question, simply type it in the comment section. Jason, thanks for taking some time today.
My pleasure. And this is, as I was hearing the intro, I thought to myself, I'm like, I should have given myself like a 4th year, a little buffer in that, how to build a $1 billion firm quickly. But excited to do this, and thanks for having me on.
Yeah, well, I'm excited for breaking it down, and I'm sure if it takes 4 years, people would be just as happy with the framework. So
yeah, no, absolutely. Let's just say, I'm not sure if it's ever been done before. One, in the time organically, that's a short time period. Certainly, one person, even harder.
Yep. Well, when I heard you say it from the stage of Future Proof, I thought, oh man, when you get on the show, that's something we're going to have to break down. But in preparing for this, I watched some interviews you've done recently, and frankly, they're all very good. You'll find links to them in the show notes. You were on Dave Zeller's Streamline My Practice. You were on with Kyle Van Pelt's Mile Marker, and then, of course, with Josh Brown at Future Proof. You do such a good job of advocating for financial advisors, in particular, independent financial advisors. So let's just jump right in. In that interview with Dave Zoller, you said that 80% of an advisor's team could be replaced by technology. Jason, I had no less than 10 advisors send me that podcast and say, Jay, how is this actually going to play out? What do I need to be doing? Tell me, what do you mean by that provocative statement?
Sure. Well, I think, we'll get into the how to replace people. I think one of the first things that we all just need to be more or less honest with ourselves about, I think this is not just unique to advisors. It's probably any, professional, service-based business. It's just how we use our time, right? So there's, let's just say for simplicity's sake, there's, 2,000-ish hours a year that you're going to work. So somewhere in the neighborhood of, 40 hours a week for 50 weeks a year, give or take, depending on how much people want to work, right? But, if people really audited their time, what they would likely find is that they're probably spending a third of that on actual high productivity, work. And staff are probably, maybe they might be a little bit better, if they have very specific charter, but many of them are definitely not getting 2,000 hours of productive work. I mean, it's just not the way things are. So the first thing that everyone has to do is, again, be honest about that, and then think through what would be necessary, what kind of radical change would be necessary to get to a place where you are actually getting the most out of the time you put in. The analogy I give people often is if you go to the gym and you work out, there's people who go there and they, kind of lollygag from machine to machine. They don't really put in a ton of effort. They take a long break and are chit-chatting with other people. From, time of arrival to time of departure, let's just say they're there for 45 minutes, but they only really put in 15 minutes of work. You will not get the same results as someone who goes in there for even 30 minutes, right? But does it with a high degree of intensity and intentionality. So that's step one, is just you've got to be honest about what's possible. And most people are not even coming close to scratching the surface of what their actual productivity could be.
Yeah, interesting looking at that through the 2,000-hour framework and breaking it down. I bet you there's some great data out there around it. So when you think about replacing a large portion of your staff, regardless of what that percentage is, what roles do you see being replaced by AI?
Yeah, I mean, I think today you can already do a lot of things, and some of it's AI, some of it's just software and smart utilization. So like to give you an example, if you spend much time on email, like that's a really bad use of time. Like you can automate almost all email. And there's multiple existing tools right now that can, save meaningful amount of time on email. Same is true with like scheduling. It's like, like it's not like there's been scheduling software for over a decade now, right? But yet many people don't use it. Instead, they're doing the whole back and forth thing and just not being efficient about scheduling. So these are more administrative type tasks, but like these things are like just, totally unnecessary to spend much time on. If someone's smart about even things like expense management, it's like just get a ramp account and start using it. Like you're going to find it's going to save you time, right? You're going to like spend less time doing administratively boring, useless things. If you're spending tons of time in your CRM, that's probably a big waste of your time. Like, should you have it? Sure. But should almost everything be happening automatically? Absolutely. Right. So whether it's the data entry happening automatically, you could do that via smart forms and Zapier integrations. You could do it just with AI, right? So your AI assistant can take all of the notes from meetings, populate those, push it into your CRM, right? So there's a lot of things where I'd say like first thing is like the traditional need for like an administrative support person is largely non-existent today. Like it's just not necessary. Could you have somebody? Sure. Like, is it necessary? Not really. Should you be doing any of the stuff on your own regardless? Absolutely not. But in this example, of course, we're talking about a world where you hypothetically you're trying to replace most of your employees. Like, again, like the low hanging fruit here is like, there's a lot of things that are very administrative in nature that can be fully, taken care of. In many cases, much better, by technology than by humans. So then you start getting into like the more practical stuff. Like, okay, now you've got a new prospect that comes in. You've got to do a meeting, right? So again, AI meeting assistant, like hopefully does more than just meeting assistant, right? But we'll be able to take that meeting, listen to the meeting, take the notes of the meeting, gather all the data from the meeting, push all that to your CRM, create a really great follow-up for the client, can probably answer most of the questions, right? Like you like many things that might be, necessary to know, like financial planning information, tax planning information, investment planning information, you can query now within natural language in your AI, and you already have most of the data, right? Just from doing the meetings, if you will. Documents, again, like no need to really fuss with documents. It's one of the use cases that AI is already extraordinarily good at. Take virtually any unstructured information out there, can all be populated and aggregated into your AI, platform of choice. And now you have everything in one place. So when you're going to build a financial plan or you want to query the data, like you have the context of both the unique proprietary data for that client and you have all of the data that exists in the internet, right? Like, so the more broad, data, like things could be relevant to, tax law changes or, financial markets, et cetera. So all of this is to say that like, there's very little need for even a paraplanner these days, right? Like, again, like there used to be this kind of, like high growth, successful firms would have sort of like the junior planner, paraplanner, partner, junior partner, whatever term they wanted to use, that kind of sit in the meetings with the senior planner, take the notes, do the follow-up, help with some of the number crunching, to optimize the time for that senior planner. And that's already largely unnecessary. And like over the next few months, it'll like, I'd say, almost absolutely be unnecessary. Like that will be something that, again, your AI assistant will be better. They're always on, they're never on vacation. They never miss a detail. Like it's just going to be better. And you don't need to have that kind of role in the firm. Beyond that, you don't need AI for everything, right? So like once it comes to, taking the data that you now gather, pushing it to your financial planning software of choice. Again, data entry is no longer relevant. Rapidly iterating financial plans to be able to test scenarios, all can be done again, like very, very efficiently. So the time it would take to do a really good comprehensive plan is just much lower than it was just even a few years ago. And that will only continue to get, more and more efficient. There's just a lot of things that once you deliver a plan, a client accepts it and you're implementing, almost everything from that point now can be fully automated. Right. So, and this is not like an AI innovation. Like this is something we've been doing at Altruist for years. If you take just the few minutes it takes to onboard a client, again, it's all digital, it's lightning fast. There's no paper being pushed around. And then you set the client account up to be highly automated, meaning quickly tag securities you don't want to have, traded. So you restrict certain securities, you assign it to the appropriate model portfolio, you create a tax budget, you set up your cash settings. These things take just a few minutes. And then once you're done, it's fully automated, right? You no longer have to worry about that client account. All cash management is done automatically. All tax management is done automatically. You can have tax loss harvesting done automatically. Like everything that in the past maybe took like some type of trader role or portfolio manager role, completely gone. Like you can just do that now. It's like about, again, 5 minutes or less, like when you're just onboarding that client. So like when I think about this is like people used to take, I don't know, 30 or 40 minutes just to do paperwork. That's now less than 2 minutes. And now you take the 5 minutes to do like the full, kind of bespoke setup for the client. This client is now like, they're good to go. Of course, you integrate these tools, custodial data, planning data, CRM data, right? Meetings. And now the ongoing relationship is very, very easy to manage because these different tools can now all speak to kind of one canonical master AI database. And it can very easily say things like, hey, in that last meeting, here's the follow-up items. I've went ahead and checked the Altruist accounts and I've already checked, pushed the data to, Right Capital. I've done all of the work for you. So anything that would have otherwise been like ongoing maintenance work, pre-meeting work, post-meeting work is pretty much entirely automated. And that's already the fact today, right? So long ramble, but, like what's left? Like what else do we need to be paying, a lot of people for? The answer is not a whole lot. Even things like demand generation, content creation, like that's pretty simple. I mean, I can go into Hazel, our RIA app right now, and I could ask questions like, hey, looking at my, 10 largest clients, what are some of the things that were talked about most in their meetings? And that might be an idea for a YouTube video. Go ahead and create that YouTube video for me, meaning like, create the headline of it, like a really good punchy one. Like tell me what, in fact, write the entire script for me and make sure I have a really compelling call to action. In fact, go out and study the, 100 highest viewed, highest commented, videos by financial planners with video content that looks kind of like the one you're creating for me. And make sure I have like a really super compelling, call to action. And, and then any other to-do list that I have to do, right? Like I could just give it that prompt and, 30 seconds, 45 seconds later of thinking, now I've got like, here's your clients, here's what you talked about, here's what's top of mind, here's these other videos, here's the framework, here's your full transcript, right? This is pretty straightforward. Now, we're really, really close. I don't know who all's been playing around with Sora. I think it's still not quite ready for prime time, but it's awfully good. Like go test it out if you haven't. You won't even have to shoot these things on your own anymore. Like you could literally just have like Sora, like study you, take a couple pictures of yourself with your voice, et cetera. And you could be like, go create a YouTube channel for me. I want to have, like I'm going to post a new video every other day for the next, 3 years. And I want them to be absolute bangers that just pull like crazy. They're scientifically optimized. Now, will they be flawless and perfect? Probably not, right? But I mean, like content creation that's highly bespoke to your top clients, right? Like is easier than ever to do. So if your goal is like build a top of funnel mechanism and then move people quickly through the funnel, onboard them as clients, like again, you can do that more efficiently today than ever before. We might all hate it, but like at the end of the day, if you want our AI to write our tweets or whatever they call them now, Zeets, I don't know, on X, LinkedIn posts, like create custom thumbnails, images, like every single thing can be done very, very fast, very, very cheaply. And the quality will only get better from here. So again, any of these little things where we might say, not quite perfect yet, like that's totally fair. This is the worst version you will ever see of these tools. They will only get better. I mean, we're talking like the CapEx being thrown at like these large language models and the chips is unlike anything we've ever seen in any other type of industrial boom in this country, like multiplied by 2 or 3 orders of magnitude. So I think it's pretty safe to say that like in 3, 6, 9, 12 months from now, like the limitations will be largely removed. It's just really going to be what do advisors want to do? Like, what do they want to build? So, I do very much, I'm not backing off at all. Like, yeah, like we could totally, take like what would normally be a team of 6 or 7 people supporting, one practice, and maybe it's one person, or if they want some camaraderie, maybe it's just one employee and one advisor, but now they can do what used to be 6 or 7 or 8 people. So very much possible, just takes a little thought.
Man, so much good stuff in there to unpack. Imagine being an advisor sitting at a legacy firm with old architecture, and they don't even understand half the things you're talking about, Jason.
Sure.
They're about to get smoked by the competition. Before we start unpacking some of that, first question came in from Kurt Buckner. He says, what tools would you recommend for email?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a pretty straightforward. I use Gmail, full G Suite, right? And I like that for a whole bunch of reasons, including the email. And then I use Hazel, so I eat my own dog food, right? Like Hazel's in on every meeting with me. I'm using it all the time. I'm prompting it all the time, but Hazel's all my email for me. So I don't have to worry about doing email on my own. If you're not a non-Hazel user, I think tools like Superhuman are awfully good, right? So you can pay a few bucks and Superhuman will do a really, really good job. The problem that it will have is it will not have the context for our industry and for our clients. And that's where tools like Hazel tend to do really well, because when a client emails you or you have a meeting, it will be able to see all of the historical information about that client. So if they ask a question, we're getting ready to release custodial data into Hazel. So someone could ask a question about their account, and Hazel can give them an answer. Superhuman can't, right? Like Superhuman's only going to have the generic information that exists inside of the inbox. So, but again, should you just be using Outlook or like Google out of the box? They're okay, right? They have Copilot and Gemini. Like they can certainly, make you better than you would have been otherwise. But if you can get an industry-specific AI that can connect to all of your tools, it knows every single conversation you've ever had with a client, knows all the details about their financial plan, knows all the details about their portfolio. Like that's just going to save you a lot more time.
Excellent. And our mutual friend Tyrone Ross would like to know, has AI helped you increase your pull-ups for the next time you guys work out together?
AI has done nothing on that front. Actually, I should take that back. So Tyrone, I love you, brother. Thanks for chiming in. I will say I probably use AI more than I should, right? But I get my blood work done every 6 months. I track every meal that I eat, every single thing that I eat. I do all of these things. I plug all of it into AI. And it helps me come up with like a very specific diet and workout plan that works for me, helps me optimize my supplements, helps me kind of optimize my sleep, right? So is it helping with my pull-ups? I'm never going to be able to do as many as Tyrone. Well, probably not, unless he breaks an arm or something. But it has actually significantly helped my health. Those who know me well will know that like I'm very, very religious about tracking data. My bone density's up, my lean muscle mass is up, my body fat's down, right? All these things. And I attribute a lot of it to the fact that I can now take all of these disparate kind of pieces of data, plug them into AI and get a much more bespoke, kind of plan. So I, of course, work with my doctor, not medical advice. But yes, Tyrone, AI has probably at least slightly helped my pull-ups.
I tell you, Jason, where I had a use case for that is I do something similar. I put all my medical information into a private project, and I had gone to a cardiologist. He told me what he wanted me to take. Then they sent over the prescriptions and all the information from the meeting. I put it up into the AI tool, and it caught a discrepancy between what the doctor told me I was going to take versus the prescription that he wrote. And I probably just wouldn't have paid attention to the fact that he got that wrong and caught it, just because you just assume the doctor's going to get it right. You just assume the doctor's going to call it incorrectly. So there's so many use cases for it.
Totally. Yeah. I actually read a similar story with a triathlete, so an Ironman athlete that had didn't feel quite right. And then kept going to see a cardiologist, and they kept, kind of saying, oh, you're fine. Like you're this elite athlete. It's probably something related to overtraining. But fed all of his details, everything that he was getting into AI. AI said, there's this one test that you really need to have your cardiologist run. The cardiologist begrudgingly finally said, okay, I'll run this test. It turned out like it saved his life, so I think that there's, I'm sure we'll see more and more of this, right? Like there's unlocks in virtually every single industry happening with AI. Yeah. And ours is going to be one of them for sure.
Yeah. One last hack I encourage advisors to, if they're fighting me on the idea they need to add AI to their business, I say take one of your client portfolios, throw it into chat. You take off the client names, of course, throw it into chat and ask it for its opinion, because your clients are going to start doing that. And you probably haven't buttoned things up enough, and you want to make sure you know what these AI agents might be saying about your particular portfolios and why they're not aligned with a systematized process. Next question
100%.
comes from Brian Layton. Semi-automated top client meeting interaction themes scanning as content generation engine is a brilliant idea. Could you go a little bit deeper on exactly how an advisor could execute on that?
Yeah, so this is what's funny is sometimes what's old is new again, right? So for those who have never heard kind of my story from private practice, I had a private practice 20 years ago, and my business was built almost entirely from blogging. So I was like a very early blogger, pre-2010. And the way it all happened came about somewhat accidentally, right? So in fact, if you go back and you could Google something like, Jason Wenk, TD Ameritrade Conference blogging or something, right? You can find an old article from probably 2010 or 2011 about my sort of adventures in blogging. But the way it all started was, I finished a client meeting, and the client says to me, this guy was a rocket scientist, by like a legitimate rocket scientist, propulsion engineer, super smart, like one of the smartest clients I ever worked with. And he I could tell something was up, and he says to me, he's like, I know I shouldn't have, but I went to one of those dinner seminars for retirees, and I know I shouldn't have, but I signed up for a meeting with the guy who gave it. And he proceeded to tell me I should buy the secure income annuity by security benefit with a 7% guaranteed lifetime withdrawal benefit rider. And he made a pretty compelling case. I couldn't find any information on the internet about this product. I'm just wondering, Jason, what do you think I should do? Is this something I should have? And it dawned on me that like this was, again, 15 years ago. And there was really not much information about that product online. There were, presumably tens of thousands of these insurance advisors, insurance agents, right? Like kind of doing these free dinner seminars around the country, presumably, pitching this product to tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people. And then many of them probably had this exact same question. Like, is this thing actually good? I don't even know how to know if it's good because I can't find any information about it online. And so I thought, well, I could write a response back or just tell the client, hey, let me do some research and send you my thoughts. I was like, or I could just record. I could build the models, right? So I went into Excel and I built out a full kind of like way to stress test, that product. Recorded about a 35 minute video walking through every detail. Like I literally took for fixed index annuities, they have what's called the statement of understanding. It's a little bit like a prospectus, but I just walked through the whole thing. I was like, let's just check everything in here. Let's sense check this. Let's compare it to a spreadsheet, fully transparent calculations. I'll show you how it really works because look, it may be good for some people. It may not be good for other people. But the only way to know is we have to really, really understand how these things work. So it was a very long blog post with like a 40 minute long form YouTube video. And that one post changed my entire life, right? Like I did that post, and before I knew it, I had, probably 20 to 30 million a month of like prospects coming, like begging for appointments, like sending me these emails into like my blog, kind of comment form, like revealing their entire financial life. Jason, I just sold my business. I have $10 million. I don't know what to do. I've talked to 3 people. They're all trying to sell me these products. And you seem to be the only person out there who actually understands how they work and speaks with some level of authority and truthfulness, And I was like, wow, this is from a single blog post. This is kind of bonkers. And so it changed my life in the sense that like I started then doing reviews on products that like just the things that were bothering my smartest clients right now. That was something I picked up on very fortunately, probably a bit serendipitously. With AI tools now, it's incredibly easy. Like, I mean, it is like the simplest, easiest prompt to figure out like what are the biggest burning financial questions, concerns, like the true sleep at night things. And most of this stuff is actually in our notes of our meetings, like not so much stuff we wrote down, but like if you were taking a transcript of the meetings we're having, these breadcrumbs are left, like they're there, right? And now AI allows you to take all of that information that used to be like very probably not, most advisors probably were not that great at taking the notes. They weren't able to pick up on all the cues. And now it's like incredibly simple, right? You can now find out very precisely. You can isolate it to your absolute top clients. So if you're trying to build like a niche practice that serves more and more of like your top clients, then it's easier than ever, to kind of like figure out like, what is it you should be talking about, writing about, making videos about, posts about, and so forth. So I would definitely encourage that. Again, the irony is that AI just makes it way easier to do this. I was very lucky, I guess, that I had like an idea 15 years ago, picked up on the cue and ran with it. I should say that idea is still being used this day. So some friends of mine are kind of I built a whole kind of, website and, content, machine around annuity products. And my understanding is they're doing like 800 million or something like that per year of new business from it, right? All just from this idea of like, write about the stuff that top clients were asking about. They ran with the annuity kind of based approach. So it's still working 15 years later. Right. And so like this, this thought of like, could you get to $1 billion in 3 years? It's like, well, if you could build the content machine, fast enough, good enough for the right type of people, you could do $1 billion plus a year. I mean, I know personally multiple advisors doing over $1 billion per year. So, but to know what those items are, AI is pretty darn good at helping you.
Yeah, Jason, let's stay on the marketing theme because we have another question. And before I bring it into the room, one thing that I have to imagine you have an amazing lens on because of all the great high growth firms custodying with you is you see what's working and what's not working. And you have the data to back it up. Joe Ward would love to hear your ideas on how you might use or suggest looking into things on the marketing front. So what other ideas should advisors be thinking about today that are generating high growth results?
Yeah. So, I mean, I would keep it, I'm like a huge fan of like simplicity, so I would keep all things pretty simple. So the first thing I would always do is try to maximize the value of my current clients, right? So, like it's always easier to get more share of wallet if it exists from your current clients, or even get referrals, like, introductions from your current clients, than to convert a total stranger into a qualified prospect, into an engaged client, and so forth, right? So, so one of the first things I would do is I would try to find out, like, are there any more opportunities to serve my existing clients? And make sure I've mined that like as best I can, right? And you can do that in a number of ways. Like, again, you can, if we want to talk about like, how could you leverage, technology, it could be something as simple as, held away assets, using a tool like a Pantera. It could be like, just straight up asking, so having conversations and asking and trying to understand, hey, I know you have 2 advisors. I'm curious, like, what would it take for you to consolidate to one advisor? Like, if I wanted to be the most valuable person in your financial life, what would that take? They'll probably tell you if you just ask them, right? The other thing I would do is I would get religious about net promoter score surveys. I've actually never seen an advisor do this, and it boggles my mind because every great company on the planet does it. There's a bunch of off-the-shelf software you can use for them. Like if you're using HubSpot for your CRM, for example, they have an NPS, kind of tool built right into it. There's probably others out there that do it as well. But NPS works like this. We've all gotten before. Every 6 months, if you're an Altruist customer, you get one, right? And it just says something like, how likely are you to refer Altruist on a scale of 1 to 10 to another advisor you know? And people can give you a score anywhere from 1 to 10. Your net promoter score is it's a formula based on how many people are promoters, which are 8, 9s, and 10s, how many are passive, which I think is like, 5 through 7, and then how many are detractors, which is 1 through 4, right? So you kind of throw out the middle section and you take the sum of your detractors and your promoters, and you divide that by total number of voters, if you will, and that gives you your net promoter score. And you multiply that number by 10. So if it's like 6.9, right, you have a 69 out of 100 net promoter score. So the reason why this is brilliant for people to do is if you're trying to unlock more share of wallet from people, if they kind of give you a pretty middle of the road to bad NPS, like I'm not likely to refer, you need to figure out why, right? So usually that should prompt an outreach. Again, if you're an Altruist customer, you no doubt have experienced this, like we definitely do, you do what we say we're going to do. If someone gives us even anything other than great, a great score, they're going to hear from us and we're going to say, what do we need to do different and better? In fact, there's also a spot when someone clicks on the button, it takes them to a page. They can give us long form feedback if they want. Hey, here's why I'm not willing to refer. I only use options trading and you guys don't have options trading. I need to have that, to be able to refer my friends because they're all really active options traders or whatever, right? So you can get the information that will help you unlock the value in your existing book of business. Like this is the low-hanging fruit, the basics. This is like the fundamentals. It's like, when they say abs are made in the kitchen, right? This is like eating your fruits and veggies, right? Like you should do everything you can to have the highest possible promoter score from your existing clients. This is going to give you the longest value. So they're going to stay with you the longest, add more money to their account. So it creates what's called lifetime value, LTV, maximizes the LTV of every single client, increases the likelihood of actual referrals. And you've just created a mechanism. Like if they say 9 or 10, you can redirect them to a page. It's like, that's amazing. I'm so glad that you're happy. Hey, below are two copy and paste snippets. If you wanted to send a note to someone, you can copy one of these and shoot it off to a friend or colleague or family member to make it easy to introduce them, to. So these are like very simple, easy, almost entirely automated things you can do to unlock value from current clients. Like that is an absolute, everyone should do it. Beyond that, I'm a huge fan of like doing, it sounds crazy, but doing one thing. Just pick a thing, do the one thing and do it so good that, you are top 1% at whatever that one thing is. And so what I mean by that is all of the highest growth firms I know, the most successful firms I know, they tend to do one thing, right? So you could take someone like James Knoll at Root Financial, like they've been very, like everybody knows who they are now. They do YouTube, right? And they crush it on YouTube. And like, that's how they get all of their business for the most part. They're not doing YouTube plus Twitter plus, whatever, like local events, plus whatever, 5 other things. Like they're doing one thing, crushing it on the one thing. Another friend of mine, his name's Matt Gilbranson. I've talked a lot about him over the years. Matt is one of the most under the radar successful advisors in the entire industry. I'm not sure how big his firm is now, but probably like 4 billion or something, maybe more. And Matt's one thing is he teaches local classes in the Twin Cities area of Minnesota at local colleges, right? So he's found, like I'd say, 3 different venues. They hit those venues throughout the year. They teach a 2-day class. It's designed for high net worth and ultra high net worth clients. So really not really designed for people with less than a few $1 million in assets. He's been doing this for like 10 years and just like clockwork can add 100 or 200 million per year in business. It wasn't that way year one, right? He just got better and better and better. Now he's scaled it. He's trained other advisors how to teach the classes. He's now a CEO leading a team of advisors that's like growing like crazy. This firm will for sure, in my view, be like a $20 billion firm sometime in the next like 5 to 10 years. Again, does one thing really, really well. On top of, like, of course, the client service, I have another friend of mine. He only does a radio show, right? Does a radio show specifically on weekend, Saturday, Sunday morning radio shows. He's been doing this for like 10, 15 years, brings in 150 million per year of new business like clockwork from doing the radio show. Doesn't do a radio show plus a podcast plus a YouTube channel, like does a radio show. So I think people need to figure out like, what's the thing that works the best for them? Like we all have things we love and things that work. If you try doing 4 or 5 things, it will not work, And I'll give you like a great example of that is, and this is not to be disrespectful, right? But like, if you're a fintech company, think about like my competitors at Altruist, and if they're trying to have a consumer product, right, like a product they sell to consumers directly, if they're trying to sell a 401k product that they're selling to small businesses, and they're trying to sell a product to advisors, and they're trying to compete with me, who's selling one thing, I only build tools for independent financial advisors and their clients. That's it. I don't build tools for wirehouses. I don't build tools for small businesses. I don't build tools for consumers. I'm not trying to build a stock trading app. I'm hell-bent, laser focused on, I want to build the absolute world's greatest platform for independent financial advisors and their clients, period, full stop, right? I like my odds. Like I'm going to probably win, right? In fact, you'd say we already are, right? So this is true with advisors as well. Like if we can just get focused, it's harder than hell to do it, because there's so many shiny objects. There's hundreds and hundreds of fintech tools out there. But the reality is, like, if you pick one lane and you love it and you just kind of go after it, just like you have, like you were one of the early folks to do, I think, video content, and like you have a big following, right? And This is from consistently applying pressure to the one thing and just getting better and better at it. Advisors should for sure be doing that too.
Yeah, I tell you, you mentioned that from the stage of Future Proof about focusing on one thing and staying with it for a number of years. And I may have focused on video, but I kind of went all over the place with it myself. It was actually something I thought about there in that moment when you brought it up at the conference, and focus really, really does matter. Man, we are almost finished and we haven't even had a chance to talk about Altruist or Hazel yet. I want to get one last question in, and this is from Patrick Masso. He wants to know what you're using to track your food daily.
Yeah, I just use ChatGPT, right? So I keep a thread. So, you can keep all of your different, kind of threads. So I go back to that thread that has like my diet, and I track everything there because it also keeps all of the context of like, what have I eaten throughout that week? Like, am I trending? Am I kind of getting a little bit too much, let's say like cholesterol or, fat or whatever it might be. So yeah, I'm sure there's a bunch of tools that are designed for it, but like I'm a text minimalist. People might not realize that, but I don't think we need lots of tools. Like in this world, we talked about the solo $1 billion practice. I'd probably have like a few tools. It'd be like ChatGPT, Hazel. Maybe you don't even need ChatGPT. You could probably just do Hazel, I suppose. Altruist. I'd probably have a CRM and a financial planning tool. That's it. I'd probably use YouTube, right? So I'd probably do what I just said. I'd build a content machine on YouTube and an absolutely killer kind of like client love machine, if that makes sense. Like where I'm just like constantly making sure they feel like just showered with attention and, give them every opportunity to help me with my growth. And respectfully, I know there's a bunch of great tools out there, but me personally, I'd be like, hey, here's my 4 things. Now I don't have to spend a lot of time working with these things. Like I'm just going to be hyper efficient. I do much the same with my health. I eat the exact same thing. The team at the office here, they'd probably they'd probably look at me like I'm a little bit of a mutant, but I eat the exact same thing for breakfast every single day, have for as long as I can remember. Exact same thing for lunch every single day, have for as long as I can remember. I bought every piece of clothing that I have from one store because I don't have to think about shit. So to me, it's like minimize all of the distractions. You'd be shocked at how much you can get, whether it's your food tracking, your wardrobe, or your clients, your client growth mechanism, right? Your firm. So yeah, less is more.
Well, and I also learned from your interview with Van Pelt that you don't eat sugar either, which takes incredible discipline. I haven't been able to get it out of my diet yet completely.
So things are funny, if you don't have something, you don't think about it. I've never had caffeine in my life either, right? So people sometimes are like, "Oh my God, how do you not have coffee?" I'm like, never had it, so I just don't care. If you don't eat sugar for a while, you just don't care about it, so yeah, in fact, if you don't eat any refined foods of any kind, which I don't, fried foods, chips, whatever, like these things to me, like I see people do it and I'm like, it doesn't seem appealing because if you don't do it in the first place, you don't really know what you're missing out on. So to me, again, it's maybe it's a bit of a OCD thing. I don't know, but I'm definitely, a less is more on virtually every aspect of life is my view.
Yeah. All right. I'd like to wrap and talk a little bit about Altruist and Hazel. So, gosh, it must have been in 2019, 2020. You gave me a custodial login for Altruist. I moved over a couple of my IRA accounts just to kind of watch how it would grow. And Jason, what those early days look like to where you are today are absolutely incredible. And what I have found in helping launch 11 RIAs over the past decade is when we go through the custodial conversations, it has gone from here are the ones you need to look at, and they say, who is Altruist? I don't know that I need to do that, to, oh yeah, I've heard about them, and how can they fit into a tech stack? Tell us, advisors who are, particularly advisors thinking of breaking away or expanding their custodial relationships, what do they need to know about Altruist?
Yeah, I mean, I think just like I mentioned with AI in general, and I'm so glad you brought up and that you were willing to give it that early test run, 6 years ago or 5 years ago. Yeah, the versions that you see today is the worst version you're ever going to see. We are a continuous release, technology company. So we launch new features on Hazel. It's like sometimes daily. On the bigger Altruist platforms, it's a much broader product. It's going to be every 2 weeks. Again, we'll probably move to even shorter release cycles down the road. And so, we're moving incredibly fast. And I think I'm very proud of the team that, what has taken other custodians 50 years to build, like we've largely built in 5 years. And if we do something, we probably do it better, right? Now, there might be some things that we don't do yet. And those things are coming soon. But, there's, to me, it's like, whether it's account opening, it's trade order execution, it's, quality of the mobile experience, money movement, like hundreds and hundreds of things that we might do. We kind of try to look at them very first principled and say, like, who cares how others do it? Like, is there a better way to do this? If so, what is that better way? Let's go do that, right? So on the core Altruist product, I mean, it's designed to be a platform. So kind of a simple way to think about it is like, yes, core to that platform, like a vertically integrated platform, is a custodian. We've digitized everything you can do at the custodial layer. And then we've stacked on top of that different pieces of software that make the custodian experience just better, right? So things like fee billing, just natively built in, it's automatic. And if you set things up the right way, you never have to worry about even worrying about your fees. You click one button to run them and you're up, and the money's in your house account in a couple of days, and seamless, right? Performance reporting, client mobile experience, model marketplace, high yield cash accounts. So we just kind of keep layering these different tools, and now Hazel kind of can nest on top of the whole thing, or Hazel's actually available totally separate. So if someone's like, whatever, at LPL, or they're at, RIA using, Schwab, Fidelity, et cetera, right? Anyone can use Hazel, which is kind of cool. Now, Hazel will work even better when it's connected to your custodial data. So, we're working on doing some external data connections and also super deeply integrating it with an Altruist. But, that's the core product. And as far as where we tend to win the most, I mean, it is overwhelmingly with advisors that are either what I call breaking away or breaking out. The way that we define that is breaking away is pretty straightforward. Like you're leaving, some form of captive environment, Edward Jones, Merrill Lynch, and et cetera. And we get a lot of that. It's probably the two I'll list are 1, 2, but they might jostle back and forth as far as the order. The break away is a little bit different. These are advisors that are most often, they're the younger advisor on a team, and that team ends up selling to some PE-backed aggregator. And the younger advisor is going, wait a minute, I thought I was the continuity plan here. What's going on? Like, why? Like, now I have to work for a private equity firm the rest of my career. Like, nobody wants to do that, right? So, like, no one wants to, like, this notion that like a Gen 2 advisor wants to, at like, let's say 35 years old, go be an employee for the next 30 years at some other like giant monstrosity RA where they have zero inputs into anything. Like, they don't get to choose anything. Like, they don't get to choose their custodian. Like, if they're like, oh, Altruist looks awesome, like the mothership's going to be like, no, we use Schwab, they give referral, like something stupid, right? And so these breakaway advisors are just, they're tired of it, right? And they're ready to go independent. They've got a little book of business they sometimes can take with them. And then they go and they build from there. So that's our two fastest growing segments, where it's like the pure breakaway, or this like breakout, like, these two archetypes are kind of interesting. And why they love Altruist is that it's very turnkey. Like, it's so easy. Like, they don't need a lot of stuff. Like, they can kind of get up and running really, really quickly. They don't have to kind of like, otherwise, like, it's like a little bit intimidating. I mean, I know you've done it a bunch of times, so for you, it's like old hat, but like for someone who's like just leaving the mothership, right? And they're like, wait a minute, I have to find a custodian and a portfolio accounting platform, and I have to do CRM, and I have to do planning, and then they get inundated. There's hundreds of other choices, and then they're like, I need to hire a consultant, and that's going to be expensive, and and that's on top of like forming the legal entity and possibly breaching their employment agreement. It's so intimidating for a lot of people that inertia wins 95% of the time. And 95% of advisors never make a change, right? And so I think what's happened here is like, they come to Altruist and they go, wow, I just have to make like 2 or 3 decisions. It's pretty straightforward, and they get most things out of the box, and it's a big upgrade. Like, it's like a massive upgrade over where they maybe were coming before in terms of user experience, efficiency, cost, et cetera. So that's kind of the pitch, for those who aren't familiar. Obviously there's a lot of folks who come from, they already have an RIA and they're just looking for a better solution. And usually those are going to be what I call, forward-thinking, client-centric advisors, sort of the phrase that I use often. And what that means is forward-thinking is like they're constantly in pursuit of better, and not so much that they're unsatisfied, but just like they feel like a deep responsibility to do their best work. This is why they're also client-centric, right? So forward-thinking, client-centric. If someone is sort of the mindset like, my way is the best way, and I'm never going to change how I do things. In fact, I'll fight people on the internet because I believe so firmly that my way is the right way. Like, that's not probably an Altruist user. That's probably someone at some other custodian, and that's fine. Like, I'm happy that they're over there. I hope they all stay there, right? Because that's an exhausting person to serve. Like, just like if you had a client that you met with and the client was like, Jay, I'm thinking about hiring you, but you need to change everything you do to how I want you to do it. Like, of course you'd be like, that's crazy. Why would I do that? So we want the forward-thinking, client-centric advisors, because when we build our product, we're building it that way. Like, we're kind of looking at it and going, can we make every single thing 10 times better than it is anywhere else? And if we can do that, like, we're going to provide this like very obvious, very fast kind of ROI value for the advisor. And that's going to be very appealing to someone who's like, again, eager to get better. Like, they have a growth mindset. And so, last thing I'll say, and then I'll shut up here, but it's just, none of these things are unique to size. I think it's another kind of interesting misnomer, as I've heard people say, and this is why it was kind of interesting, the conversation we had with Josh Brown is like, early on, people would have said, oh, isn't Altruist just for like the young advisors and their young clients that don't have a lot of money yet? And I think now what they're saying is like, no, actually some of the biggest firms in the country, certainly almost all of the fastest growing firms in the country, are using Altruist. And it's because they're firms that are, looking 10 years into the future and just, essentially, making a bet on their own business and their own longevity. And they're saying like, I feel most comfortable aligning myself with a company that is likely going to be in the lead in 10 years. And so, I think there's a lot of different ways to think about it, but that's the Altruist and Hazel in 5 minutes.
Yeah, I got to tell you. So Titleist, we onboarded Altruist here last month when I came on board. It was part of my asks before I joined as CEO for the very reasons you laid out. If you're forward thinking and you're an advisor who wants to stay away from private equity and grow your business, you provide a platform that not only enables you to do that today, but also the innovation that I have seen over the last 5 years on your platform, plus what's come with Hazel, is just very, very forward thinking. Jason, congratulations on all your success. Viewers, listeners, check out altruist.com or hazel.ai to learn more about both of these solutions for advisors. Jason, thank you.
My pleasure. Thanks, Jay.
The listener of this content should not assume that any information presented or made available on or through this media channel is receipt of or substitute for personalized investment advice. Titleist Asset Management, LLC, or TAM, is an SEC-registered investment advisor. Registration with the SEC does not imply a certain level of skill or expertise. TAM provides its services to individuals, high-net-worth investors, including trusts and other legal entities, and provides access to model portfolio strategies offered through its affiliate, Shorebird Capital LP. For a copy of TAM's disclosure documents, please visit www.advisorinfo.sec.gov and follow the search instructions.